The day after I was diagnosed with Supermale Syndrome, I suddenly found myself transmigrated into the useless male lead of an angst novel. The moment I opened my eyes, my cheating wife started cursing me again, calling me a worthless coward. But instead of panicking like she expected, I actually grinned in excitement. Her eyes widened in shock as, without hesitation, I grabbed her throat and slapped her across the face more than a dozen times, cursing her with every strike. I roared, "Your mouth has hemorrhoids. You can't even speak human words properly." Not long after, some gang member with garish, colorful dyed hair sneered at me, mocking my looks. Calmly, I blew on the steaming goji berry tea in my thermos, then casually splashed the scalding liquid right onto his face. The next moment, the air filled with the painful screams and curses of both the male supporting role and the so-called female lead. Listening to them, I felt utterly intoxicated by the sound. Who said this was supposed to be an angst novel? Clearly, it was shaping up to be incredibly satisfying. "Where's the hangover soup I asked you to make?" The moment I opened my eyes, I heard a woman's shrill, piercing voice. The next second, smack. Before I could even start thinking straight, I was slapped hard across the face. It was Willow. Her eyes were still hazy from last night's drinking as she glared down at me and spat curses. "Useless coward. Marrying you must be the worst misfortune of my life. What's the point of even having you around?" My head snapped to the side from the force of her strike, blood seeping from the corner of my mouth. I pressed my tongue against the painful cut inside my cheek, then slowly looked up at her impatient, disgusted face, only to suddenly curl my lips into a smile. Seeing me grin after being hit made Willow's fury spike. She raised her hand to slap me again, but this time I caught her by the throat. My grip tightened as I watched her expression shift, the suffocating pressure making her struggle. I licked the blood at the corner of my lips, the taste sharp and metallic, and the fire inside me only burned hotter. Raising my hand, I slapped her hard across the face. With every blow, I shouted curses. "Your mouth has hemorrhoids. You can't even speak human words. Damn it. Taking medicine is already annoying enough, and now there's this lunatic on top of it." The more I slapped her, the more exhilarated I felt. My strikes grew heavier, harder, until her broken, trembling voice finally choked out. "David, you've gone insane." At the sound of that name, my body froze for a second. Willow collapsed in my grip like a helpless chick, blood spilling from her lips after the brutal beating. Then she fainted. Oh, hell no. Did I really just transmigrate into that angst novel I read a few days ago? David, the worthless, cowardly male lead of that story, abused physically and emotionally by his cheating wife, forced so low that his kidney was even cut out, and in the end, after all that, he still forgave her. He reconciled with her. The ultimate loser among losers. Shocked, I cursed out loud. Then, glancing down at Willow's collapsed body, I realized something. This was the damn cheating female lead herself. I instantly regretted not slapping her a few more times. Just remembering those brainless humiliation plots made irritation surge in me again. My first instinct was to search for medication to control my condition, but then I remembered this was a novel. Where the hell would I even find proper medicine here? I was about to hit the cheating woman a few more times just to vent when suddenly a timid male voice rang in my head. "How could you hit Willow? She's my wife." I snapped back instantly. "What the hell are you talking about? Not only will I hit her, I'll beat her to death if I want." The voice went silent, stunned by my tone. Through our exchange, I quickly understood this was the original male lead, David. His soul was still here, and now the two of us shared the same body. But since I couldn't stand his cowardly, submissive ways, I had taken over full control. He muttered weakly, "She was just venting a little. No matter what, domestic violence isn't right." I roared back. If a woman hitting a man is just called venting, then why is it called domestic violence when a man hits a woman? After thoroughly scolding the cowardly male lead, I glanced once more at the cheating woman lying there and turned away, intent on going back to sleep. But the male lead started whining again. "Brother, can you at least put some medicine on my wife's wounds? She must be in so much pain." I burst out laughing in anger. A wife who takes out her anger by insulting and beating her husband. And I was supposed to treat her kindly? Not killing her already counted as mercy. But still, he actually called me brother. What else could I say then? With him nagging endlessly in my head until my skull hurt, the manic depression I had barely managed to suppress began to rise again. So unwillingly, I applied some medicine to her wounds. Then, tossing her onto the sofa, I thoughtfully draped over her stomach the towel. I usually used to wipe my feet. Wouldn't want her catching a cold, after all. Besides, there would be business to deal with once she woke up. I recalled the novel's plot and pulled a bank card from her bag. Tomorrow, the male lead was supposed to endure humiliation, bear scolding from her relatives, and swallow his pride no matter how badly they treated him. But since I had taken over, I decided I would turn this so-called angst novel into nothing but pure satisfaction. Early the next morning, after taking a shower, I was ready to start a new life. First step, change my look. But when I opened the wardrobe, I didn't find a single proper suit. From aside, Willow rolled her eyes. What are you looking for? You're sloppy all day long, never caring about your image, looking just like some greasy middle-aged man. And now, suddenly, you want to fix yourself up? Where was that attitude before? Fine, I'll ask my male best friend, Makoto, to give you some advice. She spoke casually, as if nothing had happened yesterday. Most likely she drank too much and blacked out. Truth was, I really did want to change my look and get new clothes. And when I heard Makoto would be coming to advise me, I felt oddly excited. After all, he wasn't just her so-called best friend. He was also the vicious male supporting role in this story. Willow looked surprised that I agreed so readily, but she didn't press the matter. She turned and walked away. Still, she absently touched her cheek. Why did it feel swollen, as if it had been slapped over and over again? Before long, Makoto arrived, dressed like some cheap street thug. The moment he stepped in, he tried to act all friendly. With a sly grin, he said, "David, Willow told me you wanted to buy some clothes and asked me to give advice. Honestly, I thought you didn't want to see me. After all, David seems to misunderstand me and has always disliked me. But in truth, Willow and I are just pure friends." He wore a helpless expression at just the right time, but the smugness in his eyes was something he couldn't hide. I clicked my tongue twice. Damn, what a pretentious act. I had no patience to tolerate him. So I cursed outright, "Your face itself is irritating. How could I possibly find it pleasing? And male best friend? Since you like being a woman's confidant so much, why don't you just castrate yourself?" Makoto's face flushed bright red, his eyes burning with murderous intent. He dropped the act and snapped, "You idiot! Why don't you just go die?" My temper flared instantly. I slapped him across the face so hard he crashed to the ground. Then, grabbing a handful of his multicolored hair, I yanked him up close, humiliatingly patting his cheek as I whispered in his ear, "Don't bark like a weak chicken." Makoto struggled, shouting threats about telling my wife. But before my absolute strength, his words were nothing but a paper tiger. Watching him tremble, with rage in my grip, instantly lifted my mood. I let him go, calmly rolled my neck, and went straight to the mall to splurge. Makoto followed bitterly, glaring at me as I swiped the card and bought whatever I wanted. The reason he was so furious was simple. This card was the very same one he had given Willow to please her, yet he had no idea how it ended up in my hands. To prepare for the upcoming banquet at the old mansion, I took extra care. I chose a suit that was low-key yet elegant, while still allowing me freedom of movement. Teps in my head held high. As expected, a flood of astonished gazes turned my way, including Willow's. She looked at me with a satisfied expression and scoffed coldly. "At least today you're dressed somewhat decently." I sneered inwardly. "Does someone like me need your evaluation?" Behind me stood Makoto, completely overshadowed by my brilliance. When he saw Willow approaching, he remembered all the humiliation he had swallowed along the way, forcing himself to suppress his anger. In a low voice, he called out, "Willow." Only then did Willow reluctantly pull her gaze away from me, replying to him a little unnaturally. Makoto secretly gritted his teeth. Stumbling forward, he reached out to grab Willow's hand. But just as he was about to touch her, he suddenly cried out in pain. It hurts, hurts, hurts. Don't touch. He jerked his hand back, glaring at me with pure hatred, his meaning crystal clear. Willow saw the so-called injury on Makoto's hand and instantly frowned. She turned to me in fury and demanded, "What did Makoto ever do to you that you had to hurt his hand? David, you've gone too far. You know very well his hands are for playing the piano." I sneered. A courtroom needs defendants to confess. And yet here, she was basically forcing me into guilt. Glancing at Makoto's hand, which didn't even have a scratch on it, I mocked coldly. "Are you blind? If Makoto's injury doesn't see a doctor soon, it'll heal completely on its own." Our arguing quickly attracted the attention of people at the banquet. Most of them were Willow's relatives, the very ones who had always mistreated the original male lead. I curled my lips into a mocking smile, just about to verbally tear the two of them apart, when Willow's second uncle and second aunt hurried over to intervene. Second uncle said, "Oh, come on now, let it go, let it go. Life isn't easy for anyone. We're all family here. Fighting only damages harmony. David, just be generous, bow your head, apologize, and it'll all blow over." Second aunt added, "Exactly. This is supposed to be a pleasant family banquet, David. Why must you stir up trouble?" Her first words already placed all the blame squarely on me. The others joined in, one after another, pressing me to apologize. Someone said, "Are you asking for a beating, pulling a stunt like this the moment you arrive? What a killjoy." Another sneered, "I'd say Willow was downright unlucky to marry you. Look at Makoto, so capable, so dependable." Yet another chimed in, "Who even knows what kind of trick he used to deceive our Willow into marrying him?" The crowd was noisy, every voice accusing me, drowning me in slander. All that chaotic noise jammed into my head, making my ears ring. The fire in my chest was like gasoline poured on flames, exploding and blazing through every inch of my body. The male lead inside my head screamed in horror at the scene. Every time I slapped someone, he shouted like a frantic commentator announcing their identities. Don't hit second aunt. Please don't hit third uncle. Don't hit second uncle either." But the more I slapped, the more I lost myself. My fury turned wild until I completely merged with the rhythm of the blows. The contact between my palm and their faces became a beautiful symphony. I sank into the music, intoxicated. My mood miraculously soothed, leaving me light and carefree. I only stopped when my arms finally grew sore from slapping. By then, the entire hall was filled with their crying and pleas for mercy. I admired the scene, and only one word echoed in my heart: satisfying. Some busybody uploaded a video of me slapping everyone at the banquet onto the internet. After that battle, I became famous overnight. Netizens even gave me the nickname Slap God of War. I was quite pleased. It proved my strength was undeniable. It was satisfying, sure, but the consequence was that my arm stayed swollen for an entire week from hitting too hard. Willow and Makoto seemed terrified of me after that beating, behaving unusually obedient these days. I couldn't be bothered to investigate further. It gave me peace and quiet anyway. During those days, I chatted often with the male lead in my head and learned details never written in the original plot. It turned out the male lead once had a prestigious family background. But after his parents died in a sudden car accident, everyone took advantage of his vulnerability and pushed him down. The Chan group collapsed and split apart. Everyone wanted to share the spoils. Everyone except the female lead. She was the only one who reached out to help him. She supported him at his lowest moment, which was why he remained hopelessly devoted to her. I, however, felt there was something fishy about that story, but I didn't say it aloud. One day, he suddenly asked me, "What about you? How did you transmigrate into this novel?" The male lead scratched his head curiously. With fighting power as strong as mine, what kind of person must I have been in my original world? But I didn't want to recall the past. Those memories were like venomous thorns lodged deep in my heart, every beat stabbing me with pain that lingered. Those experiences were the very root of what had driven me into madness. Seeing my pale face, the male lead seemed to understand. Everyone carried unspeakable secrets. He had his, and I had mine. He didn't ask further, just silently patted my shoulder. Things stayed quiet for a while, until Makoto suddenly made his move. I was lying lazily on the sofa, playing video games when the doorbell rang. David, long time no see. Makoto stood there. This time his dyed hair was back to normal, and, rare sight, he was even wearing a formal suit. After his fake cordial greeting, he arrogantly sat on the sofa with his head raised high. I glanced at him indifferently and asked, "What's the matter? Did you strain your neck?" You. Makoto nearly lost his temper for my words, but suddenly remembering something, he suppressed it and curved his lips into a smug smile. With great pride, he pulled out a medical report, tossed it in front of me, and said mockingly, "Willow is pregnant with my child, the so-called fruit of our friendship. You've been married to Willow for 4 years, and there's not a single sign of movement in her belly. What does that mean?" "It means you're not capable, David. It's me, not you." Before Makoto could finish, the male lead inside my mind could no longer contain his suppressed emotions. He directly seized control of the body. Makoto immediately sensed the sudden shift in aura. Despair and oppression washed over him completely. The male lead's eyes turned red, his body trembling uncontrollably. He seemed unwilling to believe what was happening, muttering over and over, "It's impossible, impossible." Willow said she would only have children for me. I was speechless. Makoto, seeing this, smiled smugly and taunted further. "David, you're so stupid. Women all like strong men. You're such a waste. Of course she can't stay faithful to you." This only provoked the male lead further. He suddenly stood up, seemingly losing his mind, repeating the same words again and again. "You're talking nonsense. You're talking nonsense." He clumsily reached to grab the pregnancy test report from the table, but Makoto grabbed his hand first. Makoto's eyes flickered with mockery as he suddenly shouted, "David, speak properly. Don't get physical." Then, pretending to lose balance, he deliberately fell backward. Whether by miscalculation or on purpose, his head hit the sofa's armrest with a loud thud. Makoto, Willow, who had somehow just arrived, rushed over to help the dazed Makoto on the floor. Then she turned to glare at the male lead, still frozen in place, and threatened angrily, "If anything happens to Makoto, I'll make sure you won't have a good death." The male lead ignored her threat. Instead, he stared at her with a piercing gaze and slowly asked, "Why are you pregnant?" Under that direct, unwavering gaze, Willow looked away as if burned and answered coldly, "I have the right to bear children. It's my right to choose who I want to have children with." Hearing this, the male lead let out a bitter laugh, exhausted, with no words left to say. He muttered under his breath, "Just get out." Still supporting Makoto, Willow walked away, leaving the male lead to collapse weakly onto the sofa. Overwhelming despair crashed down on him like a tidal wave, dragging him under, making him feel like he was slowly sinking, slowly dying. He couldn't understand why things had turned out this way. Willow had once loved him so deeply, so much that she had severed ties with her family just to pull him out of his darkest moments. Back then, he had already decided that Willow was the one, the person he would spend the rest of his life with. But after their marriage, everything changed. The passionate love they shared gradually faded, worn away by the dull erosion of time. Eventually, their love was buried beneath the weight of money, material gains, and the struggles of daily life. He stared at the empty doorway, unable to understand why everything had turned out like this. And I could see all of this inside the male lead's mind. His initial fury gradually softened into confusion. Quietly, I asked him, "Is it worth it to love someone who no longer loves you?" The male lead lowered his head slowly, thinking for a long while. I thought he might not answer at all, but finally, in a soft, weary voice, he said, "It's really not worth it. The Willow I loved is already gone." With those words, he closed his eyes, utterly exhausted. The next day, Willow's bodyguards forcibly dragged the male lead to the hospital. There, he saw Willow clutching Makoto's arm as he lay in a hospital bed. When she saw the male lead, she spoke slowly and carefully. Makoto has been diagnosed with acute kidney failure. He can only be saved with a kidney transplant. The male lead understood immediately, and with bitter mockery, he replied, "So?" Willow tightened her grip on Makoto's hand and continued, "David, please donate a kidney to Makoto." She hesitated, then quickly added, "Makoto won't forget you. Once the baby is born, he'll definitely acknowledge you as the godfather." Makoto joined in too, his tone persuasive. "Yeah, David, a child can't grow up without a father. Saving a life is worth more than building a 7-story pagoda." Willow added a sharper edge, threatening him. "Don't forget, the Chan group still needs the Liu family's investment." The male lead's fists clenched, his body trembling with rage. He wanted to walk away immediately, but he couldn't let the company his parents had built with their blood and sweat collapse because of him. After a long silence, he finally exhaled, then said slowly, "Fine, I agree." Relief washed over both Willow and Makoto. Willow even smiled brightly as she told the doctor to prepare for surgery. Everyone was cheerful, everyone except the male lead, who felt as though he'd fallen into an icy abyss. Lying on the operating table, just as the cold anesthetic was about to enter his veins, he felt unbearably tired. He remembered me, the one who shared his body, and whispered an apology. "Sorry, brother. I've dragged you into this. Am I just pathetic?" He despised himself for being so weak and helpless, but he was truly exhausted. His consciousness began to fade, and he never heard my final words. "David, don't take the blame for others. You've done enough." Seeing him so miserable made my heart unbearably heavy. I couldn't let this end here. George had to protect him. At the very last second, I seized control of the body. Just as the anesthetic needle touched my skin, I opened my eyes and declared coldly, "I do not agree to donate a kidney." I broke free from the restraints, snatched the syringe from the doctor, and jammed it straight into the bodyguard beside me. The operating room exploded into chaos. In the confusion, I threw on my clothes, grabbed a scalpel, and stormed out. Outside Makoto's ward, I overheard voices. A woman whispered anxiously, "Do you really think this plan will work? If Willow finds out she can't get pregnant, and I swap the order, we're finished." Makoto's voice followed, calm and smug. "It's fine. I've arranged everything. I'll make sure she has an accident, falls unconscious, and then that idiot David will donate a kidney too." The fury in my chest nearly burst through my skin. Damn it. Not only was the pregnancy a lie, they wanted both of my kidneys. I swallowed down my rage and kept listening. "Baby, just hang in there," Makoto whispered. "Once this is done, both the Chan group and the Wong group will be ours. Then you can marry me in peace." His sickeningly affectionate tone almost made me vomit. Before I could hear more, Willow suddenly stormed in, having received word of my escape. "David, are you crazy?" she screamed hysterically. The moment she shouted, Makoto and the other woman inside instantly separated, startled. I rubbed at my ears, still ringing from her shrill voice, and snapped impatiently. "What's going on? Didn't they tell you not to make noise in a hospital?" Willow gritted her teeth, dragged me inside, and glared at Makoto lying pale in bed. Her rage only deepened, as though she wanted to rip out my kidney with her bare hands. Makoto played his part well, tears and snot streaming down his face, sobbing pitifully. "David, please, have mercy, save me." He was a disgusting sight, begging like that. Still, I had to admire his acting skills. They were timed perfectly. I remained unmoved, replying calmly, "Not saving." Willow's eyes reddened with fury at my indifference. She lashed out, "David, I think you want the Chan group to go bankrupt." I sneered. "Oh, do you plan on bankrupting the Chan group a second time?" My words hit her like a thunderclap. Willow froze, her mind spinning wildly. Does David know the truth? In that instant, everyone's expression shifted. The woman in the corner arched a brow at me with interest. Willow, after a moment, composed herself, hiding her shock behind a mask of calm. She frowned and said coldly, "What nonsense are you talking about?" But it was an obvious lie. She glanced toward the woman in the corner, about to question her, when Makoto suddenly moved. He staggered out of bed, then dropped heavily to his knees before me. "David, I know you hate me. You don't want Willow to have my child. You don't want me, the biological father, to live. But I'll let the child call you father, and I'll never acknowledge myself as the father. I only beg you to save my life, so I can silently watch the child grow up." Makoto was weeping as if his heart were breaking, his body trembling on the verge of collapse. Willow rushed to his side, hugging him tightly as she screamed at me. "David, you're just watching him die? How can you be so heartless? Don't you want the child to have a father? David, you'd better donate your kidney. Building your happiness on someone else's suffering, you're truly vicious." While she ranted, Makoto shot me a triumphant grin. Their ridiculous act was almost laughable. I couldn't help but sigh and chuckle. "You two really are a perfect pair, like a bitch and a dog." Then I added mockingly, "Fine, fine. Saving a life is worth more than building a 7-story pagoda. I wouldn't want the child to grow up without a father." Their faces lit up with joy until I dropped the bombshell. "But Willow, do you really think you're pregnant?" The words made Makoto panic instantly. He snapped, "David, stop spouting nonsense." I ignored him, pulled a medical report from my pocket, and flung it at Willow's face. On it were the words, "This patient has been diagnosed with early ovarian failure and is unable to conceive." The report hit her like a slap across the face. Willow froze, stunned. I sneered, "Open your dog's eyes wide and take a good look. Who's the one with the real problem here?" In truth, the male lead had always known about Willow's condition, but to avoid humiliating her, he'd shouldered the blame himself, never telling her. But me? I wasn't about to protect a cheating woman. Exposing the truth would crush her, and I wanted that. Just looking at her disgusted me. My anger boiled over, and I kicked her aside. "Take your diagnosis and go look at it yourself." I spat. Willow staggered. Makoto, without her support, almost collapsed. I grabbed him by the neck with one hand, snarling, "And you? Didn't you want to kneel for me? Then kneel." I shoved down hard on his shoulder, forcing him to the floor. His knees slammed into the cold ceramic tiles with a crack, and he howled in pain. He cursed, "Get the hell off, you bastard." Makoto's face twisted in pain, his complexion turning truly pale. I laughed coldly. "Daring to curse at me? Do you want to keep that tongue of yours?" I noticed that Makoto had completely dropped his act of pretending to be ill, and I tightened my grip. His miserable cries and curses echoed through the room. Willow, who usually acted so sweet and gentle toward Makoto, showed no reaction this time. She just clutched the medical diagnosis in her hands, dazed. Watching this pathetic scene, I suddenly lost interest. I released Makoto, dusted off my clothes, and walked out of the room. The woman who had been silently observing everything from the corner flashed a subtle, almost imperceptible emotion in her eyes as she watched my retreating figure. I didn't want to face Willow's retaliation, so I decisively returned to the Chan group. Even though many of the core members have been dismissed after the Lu family's investment, the shares left behind by the male lead's parents still accounted for the majority. That meant the true heir of the Chan group was still me. The management rights and control were undoubtedly mine. Because of this, taking over the company's affairs immediately wasn't unreasonable. This statement alone silenced all shareholders who had opposed me, leaving them with nothing to say. They could only begrudgingly step aside. Before I transmigrated, I had already been a CEO, so managing the company wasn't difficult for me. With my understanding of the plot, I quickly secured several multi-million-dollar deals. The same shareholders who had doubted me now looked at me with satisfaction and respect. After the meeting, my father's old friend, Sam, stopped me. "David, come with me for a moment," he said. I raised an eyebrow, sensing he had something important to say. "I honestly didn't think you'd return to the company," Sam admitted, "but it seems like you've grown a lot. There are some things you need to know." "Please, Sam," I urged. "What's going on?" He handed me a file and gave me a meaningful look. "The car accident that killed your parents wasn't an accident." He motioned for me to take the file and reminded me not to say too much, as there were ears everywhere. I had already suspected something strange about the death of the male lead's parents. The plot hadn't explained much about the incident, but I was certain it was connected to Willow. After all, the first beneficiary of the Chan group's downfall was my then-fiancée, Willow. When I first took control of the male lead's body, I had already ordered someone to investigate these matters. And given the timeline, the truth should be surfacing soon. At the annual Business Elite Banquet in S City, I led the Chan group back to its peak, and naturally, my name was on the guest list. During this time, my abilities and methods were on full display for the entire business world to see. At the banquet, countless people tried to approach me, eager to strike up conversations. I was at the height of success. But Willow, on the other hand, was doing the complete opposite. As if summoned by her own name, she appeared before me. This time, Makoto wasn't by her side. "David," she said, her tone soft, "why did you leave me? You left without saying a word. Do you know how heartbroken I am?" As she moved closer, trying to link her arm with mine, I immediately shoved her away with my elbow. "Stay away from me," I snapped. "Just seeing you makes me sick." But Willow acted as if she hadn't heard my insult. Pitifully, she whispered, "David, don't treat me like this. I know you care about me. Otherwise, why would you go to such lengths to appear here? I've already forgiven you for what happened in the hospital. Let's make up, okay?" I couldn't help but laugh in disbelief. Sometimes, I truly wondered who the real lunatic between us was. "Make up?" I asked bluntly. "And what about Makoto? What happens to him?" Willow, seemingly prepared for this question, replied slowly, "I believe Makoto had his reasons. He must have lied to me because he didn't want to hurt me. But the truth about me being infertile is definitely a lie." "David, stop joking," she added softly. "There's no baby issue anymore. What's left for you to care about? I'll distance myself from Makoto. We can just pretend nothing ever happened, okay?" Hearing this, I couldn't hold back my laughter. Willow seemed to realize how absurd her own words were and immediately grew furious. She bit her lip and snapped, "David, don't get too arrogant." I leaned back, sipping champagne leisurely, enjoying her hysterical outburst. Then I decided to rip apart her last shred of dignity. "You came to find me because the Liu family's project fell through, didn't you? Mr. Liu is very unhappy with you, right?" My sharp gaze made her flinch. She couldn't hide her discomfort. My informants had already told me the news. The Liu family had suddenly revealed an illegitimate daughter who was deeply favored by the old man. That illegitimate daughter was constantly bad-mouthing Willow. That's why Willow was so desperate to reconcile with me. She wanted to use the Chan group to stabilize her position in the Liu family. Unfortunately for her, her little plan was about to collapse. With the truth exposed, Willow almost lost control of herself. She glared at me with venom in her eyes, her voice cold and threatening. "You'll regret this." We parted ways bitterly. When I returned home and opened my computer, I found a private detective had sent me documents regarding the car accident that killed David's parents. As I had expected, everything had been orchestrated by Willow. In her bid to control the Chan group, she had hired assassins without hesitation. I took a deep breath, feeling the male lead's rage rising within me. I gently patted my chest to calm myself. "Don't worry," I whispered. "I will definitely make them pay." "Hello, Mr. Chan." A woman arrived uninvited. Without looking up, I said flatly, "You finally arrived, the gossip-loving, illegitimate daughter." She stepped closer and teased, "Why so harsh? Don't look at people with colored glasses." I didn't feel like playing games with Alicia. "Cut the crap," I said directly. "Since you're here to cooperate with me, at least show some sincerity." She tilted her head and replied slyly, "That's not right, Mr. Chan. We're comrades on the same front. You rid yourself of Willow, and I rid myself of the illegitimate daughter status. As for sincerity, after it's all over, Makoto, that trash, will be at your disposal. What do you think?" Dealing with someone like her was exhausting, but I played along. Pretending to despise the dog couple, I angrily nodded in agreement. With the support of the Chan group, Alicia's position grew stronger. Mr. Liu became increasingly fond of her, granting her greater responsibility, while Willow was completely forgotten. Having lost her most cherished power to Alicia, I couldn't believe Willow would fade away quietly. Sure enough, she snapped. Willow set up a murder attempt, trying to kill Alicia the same way she had killed the male lead's parents. But Alicia wasn't a fool. When she realized the brakes on her car had been tampered with, she abandoned it immediately, saving her life. Though she broke a leg, she at least survived. Once she recovered, Alicia quickly searched for clues. She didn't need to dig too deep. She already knew it had been Willow, desperate and cornered, who had acted recklessly again. So when Willow was in the middle of being intimate with Makoto, the police barged in and arrested her. When Mr. Liu found out, he immediately announced he was severing all ties with Willow. With nowhere else to turn, Willow suddenly remembered me, her husband. She barged into my house, crying and begging. "David, my husband, I know you won't abandon me, right? I know you still love me. Please save me." I leisurely watched her cry like a drenched, pitiful rat, begging for mercy. I chuckled. "Don't stop," I said mockingly. "Keep begging. Maybe if I'm in a good mood, I'll help you." Willow's eyes lit up with desperate hope. She crawled toward me, excitedly grabbing my hand, her face filled with false affection. "David, the one I've always loved is you," she insisted. "After this is over, let's go for IVF, okay? We'll live a happy life as a family of 3. I know I've made many mistakes and hurt you, but we've been married, and our bond is strong. Please forgive me." I looked at her with utter scorn. Pulling my hand away, I slapped her tear-streaked face, a humiliation she deserved. I leaned in close and whispered, "When you orchestrated the death of my parents, did you ever think I'd forgive you?" Hearing this, Willow froze completely. We both knew the meaning behind my words. She collapsed in despair, her hand brushing against the glass, producing a sharp sound. I stared at her regretful, despairing face and suddenly started laughing. I pulled out a document. "I can help you solve your problem," I said slowly. "On one condition, you sign this divorce agreement." Willow immediately lifted her head, as if she had seen a lifeline. Her eyes red and swollen, she nodded frantically and signed without hesitation. I leaned back on the sofa, irritation clear in my voice. "Once you've signed, just get out." As agreed, I had her released from prison, though Alicia was furious with me for doing so. But the truth was, I didn't help Willow out of kindness. It was because her punishment wasn't enough. For murder, the body isn't the only thing that should suffer. The heart must be punished too. "David, why are you helping her? Didn't you hate Willow the most?" Alicia demanded, her anger boiling over. Ever since I transmigrated into this novel, I hadn't taken a single dose of my mental soothing medication, and lately, my head had started to ache again. Hearing her questioning tone made my brows furrow. Without hesitation, I slapped her across the face. "Don't think that just because you've joined the Liu family you can climb to the top," I snapped coldly. "If I want to, I can drag you down any time." The slap stunned her. Alicia pressed her lips together. Then, with those ever-calculating seductive eyes, she sat on my lap and leaned close to my ear. In a sultry whisper, she purred, "Can't forget Willow? Then why not look at me instead? I can do so much more. I promise, I'll make Mr. Chan very satisfied." I inhaled deeply, suppressing the nausea rising in me. Then I grabbed her by the hair and yanked hard, tossing her to the ground. "Ah!" Alicia's scream filled the room. Her face flushed red from pain, her breath shaky. Dusting off my pants, I warned flatly, "Stay in line. Don't parade yourself in front of me again, or next time, it'll hurt much more." She shot me a resentful glare, but didn't dare push further. She retreated, unwillingly humiliated. If Willow was vile, Alicia wasn't any better. The only reason I didn't crush her completely was because, for now, she still had value to me. Meanwhile, Willow had convinced herself that since I'd saved her, I must still harbor feelings for her. After all, if I knew the truth about my parents' deaths, why else would I intervene? Delusional. Still, believing that, she borrowed a large sum of money, hoping to make a comeback in front of Mr. Liu. But as expected, no one in the industry wanted to help her. Desperate for investment, she used her charms, drinking with men every day. Unfortunately for her, most of those men were ones I'd arranged. Not only did they refuse her, but they humiliated her in every way possible. Within months, Willow had fallen into millions of dollars of debt. And then came the final blow. She was caught in bed with another man's wife. As punishment, one of her hands was chopped off. Broken, drowning in humiliation and debt, she now had only one goal: to pay it back. If she couldn't, she might lose her other hand too. Following my instructions, Willow eventually discovered that Makoto had secretly stashed away a large sum of money. One drunken night, she stumbled home with a knife, threatening Makoto to hand it over. "You piece of trash," she screamed. "It's all your fault. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have divorced David." Makoto, enraged, shouted back, "Me? Willow, are you insane? You killed David's parents for profit. You cheated on him, betrayed him. You're selfish and greedy. No wonder someone chopped your hand off." Her fury nearly drove her to stab him, but Makoto wasn't as weak as she thought. In the heat of their struggle, he smashed a beer bottle across her body, leaving her paralyzed. Panicked, he ran straight to Alicia's place that very night, just as the two of them had planned all along. When my subordinates reported the news to me, I couldn't help but relish the sight of them tearing each other apart. Why finish Willow off myself? That would only dirty the male lead's hands. Instead, I had her delivered straight to the debt collectors. I was sure they would take excellent care of Lou's precious daughter. With Willow dealt with, only the scumbag remained. Makoto thought Alicia truly loved him. Arrogant, puffed up with false confidence, he strutted around her place, ordering the servants as though he were the master. To deal with him, I personally went to Alicia's villa. The butler respectfully welcomed me inside. When Makoto saw me, however, he exploded like a rabid dog. "Who let him in here? Get this bastard out." Ignoring him, I turned to Alicia and deliberately spoke with intimacy. "Ollie, I'm here to discuss the new project with you." Her lips curled into a smile. "I'm so happy you're here," she replied, even throwing me a flirtatious wink. Makoto nearly lost his mind. "Alicia, get rid of him." Fed up, Alicia slapped him across the face, rolling her eyes. "If you want to stay here, you'd better behave." Makoto stood frozen in disbelief. "Alicia, how can you do this to me?" I laughed openly at his pathetic state. His anger boiled over, and he roared at me, "You bastard! I'll kill you!" Charging at me. He didn't even see my kick coming. He crashed to the ground, writhing in pain. I picked up a glass of scalding hot water and casually splashed it across his face. The sound of blistering skin filled the room as he screamed, "Oh, it's so hot." Looking like a crazed, long-haired stray, Makoto still tried to lunge at me. Annoyed, Alicia waved her hand. "Are you insane? Someone, lock him in the basement. Don't let him out without my permission." Servants dragged him away, his swollen face a grotesque mask of pain, curses spilling from his lips. I couldn't care less. I was the one enjoying this. Once the noise settled, Alicia asked cautiously, "Mr. Chan, what new project were you referring to?" I smiled faintly. "Oh, nothing much. Just that you've been removed from the next project." Her face froze. From the very beginning, Alicia's intentions were never pure. How could I possibly help her secure her position in the Liu family? Her usefulness was gone. It was time to discard her too. Without another glance, I turned, waved casually, and left with carefree steps. Behind me, I could still faintly hear her desperate screams, mingled with the pitiful cries of the man locked in her villa. Everything was finally in place. For the first time, I felt a strange sense of relief. Driving to the beach, I let the salty sea breeze wash over me. Gazing at the vast ocean, I spoke softly. "Come out. I know you've been awake for a while now." Only the waves answered. Looking down with a smirk, I continued, "I'm leaving." No sooner had the words left my lips than a male voice responded. "Why leave? Isn't it nice here?" It was the male lead. He had woken up when I took over the Chan Group's board of directors, but he lacked the courage to face anything and instead hid deep inside, like a coward. I teased him, "Oh, so the turtle finally stuck its head out?" He sighed. "Thank you for everything you've done. I'm just a coward." Back in school, I couldn't fight back against bullies. When my parents were harmed, I had no power to avenge them. I closed my eyes, answering lightly, "It's okay. Courage can be developed. As long as you can stand again, that's enough. Besides, wasn't it your stage when we discussed the divorce?" He froze. The divorce discussion, that had been all him. That day, I hadn't been in control of his body because I wasn't feeling well. I comforted him with a smile. All right. I really have to go now. I'm going back to my world to face what I've been running from in my heart." My soul floated out of his body, standing before him in my true form, a man with the classic protagonist's appearance. Suddenly, it all clicked for him. No wonder I was so skilled at delivering slaps. I was really leaving. The male lead stepped forward and hugged me. His voice was warm as he whispered, "You did this a long time ago. Good luck." His words faded like an echo, and just like that, I returned to my own world.